The clink of glasses and low hum of country music filled O'Malley's pub in a quiet corner of Jacksonville, North Carolina. It was a Friday night, but the place felt more like a living room for those who had nowhere else to go. Lance Corporal Jake Harlan nursed his second beer at the bar, still in his sweat-stained Marine Corps t-shirt, fresh off a long week of training at Camp Lejeune. His eyes kept drifting to the corner table where an older man sat alone in a wheelchair. The man's left leg ended just above the knee, the empty pant leg neatly pinned. A faded flight jacket hung over the back of his chair despite the warm evening. On his cap, a worn patch showed a skeletal Grim Reaper holding a scythe over a helicopter silhouette. Below it, stitched in careful lettering, Reaper 1. Jake had seen plenty of vets, but something about this one pulled at him. Maybe it was the quiet dignity, or the way the man stared into his coffee like it held answers the rest of the world had forgotten. Jake grabbed his beer and walked over. "Mind if I join you, sir?" The older man looked up. His face was weathered, eyes sharp but kind. "Plenty of empty tables, son. But company's rare these days. Sit." Jake extended his hand. "Lance Corporal Jake Harlan, 2nd Marines. Just call me Jake. Master Gunnery Sergeant Elias Crow, retired. Most folks around here just call me Eli." They shook. The grip was still firm. They talked easily at first, about the Corps, about how Jacksonville had changed, about the price of beer. Jake noticed the Navy Cross ribbon on the jacket. He couldn't help himself. "Sir, that call sign on your cap. Reaper 1. That's a hell of a name. What's the story behind it?" Eli had just lifted his glass of sweet tea to take a sip. At the words Reaper 1, his hand froze. The glass slipped, hit the table with a crack, and sweet tea spilled across the wood, dripping onto his lap. He didn't move to clean it. His face went pale. Jake jumped up. "Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't mean." Eli waved him off, eyes distant. No, it's not you, son. Just, been a long time since anyone called me that." He looked at Jake for a long moment, as if deciding something. Then he spoke quietly. "Sit back down. I'll tell you. But you might want another beer." What followed was a story that would change both their lives. In 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, then Captain Elias Crow flew AH-1W Super Cobras with HMLA 369, the gunfighters. His bird was Reaper 1. On February 26, during the Battle of 73 Easting, his section was called in to support a pinned-down Army unit that had blundered into a Republican Guard ambush. "It was a meat grinder down there," Eli said, voice steady but low. "Tracers, smoke, burning vehicles. I had 2 birds. We rolled in hot, ripple-firing rockets and guns. Saved a lot of boys that day. But on the 3rd pass, he tapped the stump of his leg. RPG caught us just as we were braking. My co-pilot didn't make it. I barely did." Jake listened, spellbound. He had heard of the battle in history classes, but never like this. Eli continued, a small smile breaking through. "They gave me the Navy Cross. Sent me home. The Corps took care of me, rehab, prosthetic, all of it. But after a few years, the VA appointments, the nightmares. I drifted. Wife left. Kids grew up and moved on. I got good at being invisible. People see the wheelchair first, then the patches, then they look away. Easier for everyone." Jake felt a knot in his throat. He thought of his own father, a Gulf War vet who had come home silent and angry, who drank until his liver gave out when Jake was 17. His dad had never talked about it. Never got help. "Sir," Jake said slowly, "my dad was there. 1st Infantry Division. He used to talk about Cobra pilots who came in like angels of death when they thought they were done for. Called them the Reapers." Eli's eyes sharpened. "What was your dad's name, son. Staff Sergeant Thomas Harlan. Eli went very still. Then he laughed, a short, disbelieving sound that turned into something closer to a sob. Tommy Harlan. Red hair, big mouth, from Ohio. Kept yelling, "Get some," over the radio like it was a football game. Jake nodded, tears stinging his eyes. That's him. Eli reached across the table and gripped Jake's forearm with surprising strength. Your father dragged 3 wounded men out of a burning Bradley while we were providing cover. I remember the name. We kept that sector clear as long as we could. Your dad, he was one of the reasons I kept flying that day even after we were hit. The 2 men sat in silence as the weight of coincidence settled over them. Fate, or something like it, had brought a young Marine and an old pilot together in a small North Carolina bar. But the real story, the one that would matter most, was only beginning. Jake started showing up at O'Malley's every Friday. Sometimes he brought other young Marines. Sometimes just himself and a deck of cards. Eli taught him poker tricks from the old days. Jake listened to stories about flying, about Brotherhood, about the friends who never came home. One night, Eli wasn't at his usual table. Jake found him outside in the parking lot, struggling with his wheelchair on a cracked bit of pavement. The prosthetic had been giving him trouble for weeks, and the VA waitlist was months long. I got you, Gunny, Jake said, helping him without being asked twice. Over the next weeks, Jake became a quiet force. He drove Eli to VA appointments when the shuttle didn't show. He rallied a few buddies to repair the ramp at Eli's small apartment complex. One weekend, they collected money, quietly, no fuss, and got Eli a new lightweight wheelchair and a better prosthetic socket fitted by a private clinic. Eli protested at first. I don't need charity, son. It's not charity, Jake replied. It's payback. You flew for my dad. For all of us. Least we can do is make sure you can still roll into the bar on your own. The emotional peak came on a humid August evening. Jake arrived at Eli's place with a small group, 3 other Marines, a Navy corpsman, and, surprise, a woman in her late 30s who looked a lot like Eli. It was his daughter, Sarah, who had flown in from California after Jake tracked her down through old Corps contacts. Eli's face crumpled when he saw her. For the first time in years, the old pilot cried openly. I thought you'd given up on me, he whispered as she hugged him. Never, Dad. I just didn't know how to reach you. This young Marine here made me realize I had to try. They spent the evening on the porch, laughing, telling stories, remembering the fallen. Jake sat back, watching the old Gunny's face light up in a way he'd never seen. For the first time in decades, Reaper 1 wasn't flying alone. Months later, on the anniversary of Desert Storm, O'Malley's hosted a small gathering. Eli, Reaper 1, Crow stood, on his new prosthetic, wearing his old flight jacket, surrounded by active duty Marines, veterans, and his reunited family. He raised a glass. To the young ones who still remember what it means to look out for your own. I thought my war was over. Turns out, the mission continues. And this time, the young Marines saved the old pilot. Jake stood beside him, no longer just a lance corporal but a man who understood the full weight of the Corps' motto, Semper Fi. Always faithful. As the applause died down and the music started again, Eli leaned over and said quietly, You know what the real call sign should be, son? What's that, Gunny? Eli smiled, eyes bright. Reaper 2. Because the legacy ain't dying on my watch. Not anymore. That night, as Jake drove home under the Carolina stars, he thought about how a simple question about a call sign had led to spilled tea, revealed connections, and ultimately, healing for 2 generations of warriors. In a world that often moves too fast and forgets too easily, sometimes all it takes is one Marine willing to cross the bar, ask the question, and then show up for the answer. Reaper 1 was flying again, not in the skies over Iraq, but in the quiet courage of those who refuse to let a brother sit alone in the corner. And somewhere, Jake's father was probably smiling too.